Welcome inside this Tuesday, Eastern Conference edition of the NHL podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. On today's show, we are going to recap day one of the NHL playoffs, of course, with a microscope solidly pointed at the Eastern Conference. We had two games, both blowouts, but we also had boots on the ground. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Mike DiStefano. Mikey was down at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, so we'll get a first-hand look at what he saw in what was an exciting night if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. We'll also get into the Carolina Hurricanes and their dominant showing against the Boston Bruins, plus a preview of the two other series starting tonight. We've got the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Rangers, as well as the President's Trophy winning Florida Panthers taking on the Washington Capitals. All that and more. This is the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.
Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen on this Tuesday, May 3rd. I'm Ross Levitan, host of Locked On Senators, alongside Mike DiStefano, host of Locked On Leafs. And it's very appropriate that Locked On Maple Leafs is involved in today's show because, Mikey, that was a blowout last night in every sense of the word.
Absolutely, it was. It was the Leafs showed up, that's for sure. They showed up to play that game, and they had to. All year long, all they heard was, they're breaking records, scoring goals at record pace. And it was, yeah, it's nice. Let's see what they do in the playoffs. Let's see what they got when the games actually matter. And yesterday was kind of the culminating activity of what they were leading up to all season long. It's only one game, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself, and Leaf fans shouldn't either. But boy, that was a good freaking showing. Let me tell you, the boys came to play. The entire lineup was fantastic. And big 5-0 win, a good shutout for Soupy. Mitch Marner ended up breaking his goal-scoring drought. Matthews with a couple. The big boys are rolling. They're getting going pretty early on. Pretty good showing for the Maple Leafs.
Well, I think you buried the lead too, which is hard to do because you did make a lot of great points there with Matthews, Marner, Jack Campbell, but Mikey.
Right. David Kampf also scored an unbelievable.
Well, on that note, though, it was a shorthanded goal from David Kampf. I was going to go there. They were shorthanded 7 out of 20 minutes in the first period after Kyle Clifford took a bonehead major penalty, but 5 for 5 on the PK. That had to be a pretty solid sight to see, and one that can be a sustainable key to success throughout this whole series.
Yeah, one of the things that I said on the Locked On NHL show and on my Leafs Lunch show, special teams is going to be huge in the playoffs, as it usually is, and that's where I think the Leafs have the advantage. They had a the top-ranked power play, and they did score a power play goal last night, and they had a top 10 ranked penalty kill. They were top 5 for most of the season, and had a little bit of a slip towards the end of the year, ended up falling into I think 8th when all said and done at the end of the season, but. I mean, they looked dominant last night. It was more of a power kill than a penalty kill. And that's what really propelled that team to victory, honestly. Kyle Clifford took a stupid, boarding call last night. He gets tossed 5 in a game. And right then and there, I mean, I thought that could have been curtains for Toronto in that game. You give those guys, Stamkos, Kucherov, Point, Palat, you give them 5 minutes of 5-on-4. I thought for sure, okay, they'll probably get 2. They'll probably get 2.
They didn't even get 2 shots.
No, the Maple Leafs legitimately outchanced Tampa Bay on that 5-minute major. And through the first period, 7 minutes shorthanded, like you mentioned, they had a 51% expected goal share.
Wow.
Shorthanded. Yeah. Shorthanded. It was incredible. They had 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, whether it was Marner and Kerfoot or Engvall. Kampf ended up scoring later in the game, but Giordano had an opportunity shorthanded. It was just, all throughout the lineup, but it was just so meticulously and perfectly killed off too, the way that they did that. It was honestly, they didn't allow them to gain possession at all. They were clogging up the neutral zone and just getting the puck and just whipping it down the ice, going off for a change. Quick 20, 30-second shifts, keeping the legs fresh the entire time. It was clinic. absolutely clinic, just a textbook kill, and it gave them the momentum to eventually go out and score a goal of their own directly after killing off that penalty. And then they kind of just took advantage from the game from there on out. And I'll tell you what, the crowd was electric last night. I was up in press row, so I wasn't able to celebrate with the good folks in the Leafs arena. But man, you got to give props to them. And Sheldon Keefe post game even came out and said, like, we don't kill that 5-minute major off if the crowd doesn't help and get behind us there. That's where he said he felt home ice advantage for the first time in his Maple Leafs tenure. Keep in mind, this is the first time that he's had fans in the building for a playoff game, a full barn. And he realized last night that's what that home ice can do for you.
Yeah, because he downplayed it too, down the stretch, but realized last night, like, you know what, it does make quite a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a good, strong game, obviously, from top to bottom, like I said. But game 2 is going to be important, right? They're going to have to come out and replicate that, and you know that Tampa's going to come back bigger and stronger. They're going to be a lot better of a team. Even John Cooper came out afterwards, and he's like, "Look, that was not our game. Toronto." He's like, "Yeah, Toronto was okay. They didn't really have to be great tonight because we were that bad." So that was some fighting words, I guess, from John Cooper. And speaking of fighting, things got out of hand a little bit towards the end of the game, which I was worried might happen just because, 4-5-0 game. Typically, the team that's down just wants to do something. And things
wouldn't that have been a good time to have Kyle Clifford in the lineup, not have him play 48 seconds?
Well, yeah, probably would have been. I mean, Simmer was out there. He didn't end up dropping the mitts, though, I don't think.
Only played 5 minutes. I was actually surprised, especially after Clifford was tossed so early. Not that he was going to play too much more, but Wayne Simmons, 540. And just to pick up on your point, Mikey, 113 total penalty minutes in this game. Not usually what the Leafs are known for over this stretch of infutility where from 2017 beyond, it's all skill. So, I mean, they're showing teams they can mix it up. I think that if they can get past Tampa, they're definitely sending a message to the rest of the league.
They had a pushback last night for sure. I mean, Tampa's a tough team, obviously. You can't go back-to-back cup champions without being a tough team. I think they had like 52 or 53 hits last night too. So they were a very physical team, and Toronto pushed back. And it got to a boiling point where Morgan Rielly snapped. Like, Jan Ruta goes after Rielly at one point, and Rielly just says, enough's enough, and just beats the piss out of him, blood pouring from his head onto the ice. They had to go and scrape the ice a little bit to get it off, and so that before they could get going. Yeah, man, it was a terrific game, though, from start to finish for the Maple Leafs. Probably, I don't even think it's an argument, the most complete playoff victory that the Leafs have had in the Matthews Marner era.
All right, those are pretty big words there. After a game 1 victory, the Leafs get that goal with under 2 minutes left in the first period. Do you think the crowd picks them up the same just off the killed penalties going into the second period, or do you think that first goal really kind of helped get them into it at the same time?
No, the crowd was great from like the entire game, honestly.
They show up on time?
They showed up on time.
I know there's a problem with the Raptors playoffs, getting them in time for tip. So
yeah, you know what the big problem is? Like the platinum seats, because they got the boxes in behind, right?
Well, and Steph doesn't share a parking spot too, so everyone's kind of scrambling.
Yeah, that was awful move by producer Steph. Hazy shared his parking spot with me though, so it's all good.
There you go.
But no, you know what? The crowd was out there ready to go. It was a lot. It started with the national anthem.
Martina Ortiz-Louise, first star of the night every night that she's going. She's unbelievable.
Oh my gosh, she's the best. Absolutely the best. The anthem singer for the Leafs. She's fantastic. But like the crowd was really into it, and like they sang "Oh Canada" alongside her, loud and proud. And a nice big roaring ovation when she was done. A "Go Leafs Go" chant all the way through until like a few seconds after puck drop. And then, a couple of hits got laid. And the crowd was great all night. Stammer, when he whiffed on that open net opportunity off the one-timer, he was getting the Stamkos, the jeers. The Bronx cheer came in every time Vasilevsky touched the puck after he made that blunder, which allowed Matthews to make it 5-0. The crowd, from start to finish, man, they were into that game. So
Crazy to think that Vasilevsky blunder was the second worst by a goalie last night, but we'll leave the Western Conference boys to pick up the pieces from Mike Smith last night. Oh, boy. If I'm looking at this from a Lightning perspective, and I am a known Leafs hater, and I am someone who went to betonline.net and put a few shekels on the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm looking at this game sheet, and I'm saying, I don't think Vasilevsky's allowing 5 goals on 33 shots again anytime soon. An .848 save percentage is a tick lower than his playoff percentage of .920. I'm looking at a power play that's gone 0 for 5. They pulled up a stat. You were at the game, so you wouldn't have seen it, but on Hockey Night in Canada, that over the last 3 weeks, their power play was clicking at 48%.
Dude, I know.
Jeez, I know. They looked like they were skating in quicksand on the breakout on the 5 minute advantage. Like Hedman, no like
oomph.
Yeah, there was no like will to get up the ice. Urgency. There's the perfect word. Kucherov looked disinterested. He's got a bit of the Malkin syndrome where when he gets upset, everybody on the ice knows it, and the other team can just play that right into their cards. So I think that he needs to take a deep breath here before game 2.
He certainly does, because like you look at last night, he takes that stupid penalty right at the end of the 5-minute major.
Like he was upset. He was upset the pass got blocked. Like what was that?
Right, exactly. And it puts his team shorthanded right after, and it wasn't technically a power play goal, but Muzzin scores like as the penalty expires, like PP2 unit was still out there, and it's because they got that momentum and they were able to score through that penalty. It's just a nonsense penalty that Tampa can't be taking. I don't think he'll take it again, or he shouldn't take it again, the next game. And that's something that I'm sure John Cooper is certainly going to talk to his team about. Now, look, I know that I'm in the market, obviously, host of Locked On Leafs. The game 2 is going to be more telling than game 1 was. Game 1, I think, meant more to Toronto anyways. And you could tell based on how they came out on fire. But Tampa's going to come out on fire in game 2. They most certainly are going to do that. They got punched in the mouth, and if there's one team that can get off the mat, it is the Tampa Bay Lightning. So Toronto, they're obviously going to be happy with how they played last night, but how they play on Wednesday is going to be the true indicator of whether or not this team is ready for a long playoff run, and if this year truly is different. That's what I think.
It certainly lived up to the hype, though, in terms of entertainment value. I think everybody who was watching that game was fired up for a great hockey game that had the violence that Sheldon Keefe had hypothesized about that it was going to take. And, going into the postseason, that there's always that little extra, especially when you're celebrating, or is it called a celebration? The 55th anniversary of your last Stanley Cup. Just the timing of it worked out the day of May 2nd. And they actually, you probably didn't see this as well. It was on the broadcast. They showed it was pretty cool camera work. I loved it. They showed, they show the players coming in. So they had it on Matthews walking by Dave Keon with the cup, like the picture of it on the wall. And as Matthews walked by, then they zoomed in on the photo of Keon with the cup. I thought that was pretty cool.
Nice. Hey, hopefully it's Matthews one day, man. Hopefully it's Matthews one day. First, before we kind of move on, though, real quick prediction. Do we think Clifford gets a game for his actions?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's player safety messaging you right now. But what I'll say on that is what a strong forecheck on the first play. You're like, okay, he's doing his job. And then he just, I don't know if his wires crossed or what.
Stupid play.
He saw number 79 from the hash marks all the way past the blue line. I would give him a game just to be like, all right, let's get this nonsense out of here, game 1. Because if he doesn't get a game, then what's stopping Pat Maroon if it's a blowout in game 2 doing the same thing at the end of it? I don't know. I think
that was my worry. My worry was game 1. See, maybe like at the end of game 1, having someone take liberties just because the game was a blowout.
Well, Maroon did a little bit, but they were going after, who was it? Stamkos in the scrum? Somebody was going after Stamkos, and Maroon and Riley were kind of tied up, and Maroon jumped over to try to rip off whoever was, I think it was Simmons or whoever was just grabbing at Stamkos. And then when he realized he couldn't get in there, he's like, all right, well, I'm just going to tee off on you then. So he pulled Riley's jersey over him, gave him a few uppercuts as well. I think that was before Riley snapped on Ruda. So there's a little bit of that. But
I think because it went to commercial.
Yeah, it did.
I was told that it went to commercial when the second
broke loose.
time things hell broke loose. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember. Like it just kind of like that second wave of fighting just kind of happened. Like it seemed like
yeah.
there was like it all gotten calmed down and whatnot. The refs kind of got under control, and then out of nowhere there was like another cross check to Riley, and then like Riley or to I can't remember who it was against, but then Riley like came in and was like, "Hey, I don't think so." And then Ruta came in, and Riley was like, "All right, I'm done with this." And then boom, and then him and Ruta end up going, and Ruta falls, and he gets a big time blow to the head from Riley, and obviously, we know what happened there. But that second wave of fighting just kind of came from out of nowhere. I'm not sure if something was said or what that caused like a cross check to cause the extra melee. But I don't like that though. Like my biggest worry for this team would have been if Morgan Riley would have broken his hand over that guy's skull.
Right.
Because that would just be disastrous. Absolutely disastrous.
Man, Morgan Riley's been here through the Peter Horacek era. He's been here through it all. So to see this stat line for game one, this kid wants it. 2 assists plus 1, 15 penalty minutes, 3 shots on goal, 5 block shots, and 2 hits for Morgan Riley in tonight's game. He's waking up and getting some athletic greens into him, though, after a big night physically like that. Athletic Greens, one of our favorite partners here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I use it. Mikey use it. And while we have been tasting the difference, it's also feeling the difference because this makes every morning a little bit more energized. Now, what is this stuff? 1 delicious scoop of Athletic Greens. You're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. They all help you start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, and your aging. Doesn't that sound like the complete package? Just honestly try it for yourself. It's a lifestyle friendly. It's so easy to just grab a scoop of AG1 and you can taste the benefits right away. So it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with a convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into flu and cold season. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements. Just go to AG1. They got you covered. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply. 1 free year of supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Have a deal. All that you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. It's Athletic Greens. Go get it today. athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. You are listening to the Locked On NHL podcast, the Tuesday Eastern Conference edition. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find my work at Locked On Senators. I'm alongside Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs. Locked On Leafs is firing up today. I am imagining that the vibes will be very high coming off a 5-0 shutout Game 1 victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's an off day today in that series. There are 2 games getting involved tonight. The New York Rangers are hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins at Madison Square Garden. And then we've got the President's Trophy winning Florida Panthers taking on Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals. Always hilarious story. Just before we move on to the other game from last night, Carolina and Boston. I always laugh when Ovechkin plays Florida. Do you remember that then GM, I think it was Dale Talon, tried to convince the league that Ovechkin would be eligible for the 2003 draft instead of 2004. Do you know this story, Mikey?
No. Please explain.
So Alex Ovechkin was 4 days too young to be drafted in 2003.
2 days. Only 2 days.
2 days, okay. They tried to convince the league that if leap years weren't taken into account, that he was old enough. because they wanted him so bad.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
So good. Could you imagine if he was in Florida? I mean, talk about growing the game, but he's found a home there in Washington. But great matchup, I think, here, because Washington, we were talking about this about the last month. Like, they really made a push here to separate, and they were one of the hottest teams in the Eastern Conference. But before we'll finish up today's show previewing the games that you can find tonight, we'll move on to the other game in the Eastern Conference that started last night. And this one, there were a lot of people who were jumping on the Bruins wagon. Again, the other wildcard team, just like Washington, who finished the year strong. And then you double that down with Carolina missing Freddie Anderson, their number one goalie. You're like, oh, man, is this a recipe where we could see an upset? Carolina wasn't having any of that, Mikey. None at all. They win 5-1.
Yeah, no, they weren't having any of that. And I was one of those who was on the Bruins bandwagon. I think that Boston's like a solid club, and they've played well all year. And the goaltending situation in Carolina just scared me a little bit. But if you actually like dig into that matchup and what we saw throughout the regular season, Carolina owned Boston. They were 3-0 on the year, outscored them 16-1 throughout the 3 games that they played in the regular season. So
Math guy, that means 21-2 right now.
Right. So on this season, including postseason, yeah, it's a 21-2. So if you think one team's got in one's head, you got to think that the Carolina Hurricanes living rent free a little bit inside of the Boston Bruins. And last night, I mean, look, Antti Raanta came to play. I wasn't sure, how he was going to look, obviously. He's not Freddie Anderson, but time and time again, we often see goalie X come in and just play phenomenally in front of that structured defense that Carolina Hurricanes possess. It almost seems like goaltending, that's the one team in the entire NHL where it actually feels like goaltending doesn't matter because they have the structure in front to allow the goalie to flourish, no matter who it is. Because even when Raanta was out right ahead of the playoffs, they had that rookie come in, Tochnikov or Peter Kokalev.
Yeah, Kochkov.
Yeah, he was great. So it was even like, maybe they can get by with this kid. And then Raanta goes in last night, only surrenders 1 goal on, how many shots do they have on him? 36 shots?
Yeah, they did. Like, the score wasn't indicative of how this game went. And especially you look, and they scored 2 goals in the last 3 minutes and 1 second as well. So it's really 3-1 late in the third period.
Right. And what'd you think of Boston going with Ullmark over Swayman? I didn't particularly like that decision. I thought Swayman has been the better goalie this season.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know how you can argue that, but Ullmark's their big ticket free agent, right? He's making $5 million a year. Do you have a short leash on him? What's the play? It's not
a quick hook. What do you think?
I mean, they played identical games this season, and Ullmark actually had a bit better of a save percentage. So I guess they kind of have the tiebreaker probably as who's it easier to take out after a game or two if it's not going the way? The 28-year-old veteran, big ticket free agent, or the 23-year-old who's still in his rookie deal, right? So I think that's probably what it boiled down to for Bruce Cassidy. And he knows about using 2 goalies in the playoffs too, right? Like, I know they've had Tuukka Rask all those years, but in the bubble, he came and then left all of a sudden. So, they had to switch things up in a hurry there. So I think it's probably the safer play to start with Ullmark, although you're looking at a situation where it probably backfired a little bit in game 1.
Yeah, I we'll see what they end up doing. Obviously, there's a chance that you could see him getting an opportunity there. Did you see Vinny Trocheck's goal last night though?
No, I missed it. That was the one with 3 minutes left.
Okay, so Vinny Trocheck had himself an amazing goal. He just kind of like on the legitimately from behind the red line, just flips a backhander and it banks it right off the goaltender. There was maybe 6 inches of space above maybe like 8 to 9 inches of space above Ullmark's shoulder and the post, and he gets it right up in there and banks it off of the shoulder of the goaltender right into the back of the net. It was an unbelievable goal on the backhand from beyond the red line. Unreal goal by Trocheck last night.
Man, how about the rich getting richer with the great drafting? This Seth Jarvis kid, Winnipeg boy, but he comes out here in his first playoff game and gets 2 points. And he wasn't a top 10 pick, right? He should have been, goes 13th overall. Guy just turned 20 years old in February, and he's already got a 40-point season under his belt. He's already got now 2 points in his first playoff game. And to me, he's just the type of guy who's proving time and time again that you don't have to be 6'2" or 6'5", whatever it is. He's a little guy, but man, he just flies up and down the wing. I thought he was outstanding in last night's game for Carolina, a real bright spot. And he just gives them that much more depth because, they've got that top line with Aho and Svechnikov. They were doing their magic last night as they always do. But with Trocheck, with Jarvis, they just add so much more depth to this team. And we know on the back end, they're nasty. They've got offensively minded guys like D'Angelo, and even Slavin's kind of rounded out that part of his game. We know he's so elite defensively. And Ian Cole, man,
the best defensive defenseman in the NHL.
Easily. But, dude, Ian Cole doesn't get enough respect as being a sick defensive defenseman. He had an unbelievable game last night.
He's had a bounce back year. He really has. He's been terrific for them. And it's funny because they lost Dougie Hamilton and still won the division. Right?
Yeah, and got better.
Yeah. Somehow they actually got better. It's just a testament to how, amazing that blue line is. It really is.
And you look, they're 16. Even I know that Tampa, Ruda was in the box a bunch, but he still played under 10 minutes last night. Toronto doesn't use their third pair as much, but look at Carolina. And sure, you can say it's easier playing with a lead for a lot. For the third period, right? They only scored their first goal with 3.5 minutes left in the second, but their lowest ice time for a defenseman was 17 minutes, 16:50. Tony DeAngelo plays that. And if they get more than 2 power plays in the game, 3 power plays in the game, then he's probably even up a little bit more. But the way they can just roll 3 pairs over and over and over again, that to me is another recipe for a long run because you're not going to grind out your top 4. Exactly. Yeah. Keep them fresh. Everybody's in that same token. Brendan Smith, the only defenseman on Carolina without a point last night. And guess what he does? Gets a game-high 7 hits. So everyone kind of knows their role. They bring it, and that's what makes them dangerous. They might not have the same level of a game breaker as a Pasternak up front or every other team, like a Stamkos, a Matthews, all those other guys, a Kucherov. But what they have is a depth up front and depth on the back end, and that makes for a scary team here. If you're Boston, I know you mentioned the goaltending. Do you go back to Ullmark for one more game, or are you already pulling the trigger after game 1?
It's going to be a difficult decision. Typically in the past, history would tell us that you usually get a second game, right?
Yeah. Well, Carolina, it made me think of when they started Martin Gerber in 2006. They gave him 2 games against Montreal, and then Cam Ward took over. Right. Hey, the young kid, Cam Ward. I see some parallels with Swayman.
That's exactly what happened, right? They went and they took off, and the rest is history, as they say. We've seen that happen a lot, really. You can think back to the Washington Capitals, their cup run, right? Who started that series? Who started that playoffs that year? It wasn't Braden Holtby who finished it off.
Oh,
right?
True.
It wasn't Holtby. It was Grubauer.
Yes, it was.
Right? So Grubauer starts game 1 and 2, doesn't do well. So then they go to Holtby in game 3 against the Devils, and he goes on, doesn't relinquish the net. We've seen this in the past. There's a recipe for it. So I think he might get one more game, and then if he loses in that one and they end up going back to Boston down 0-2, then you'll see Jeremy Swayman in net, I think. But if they went with him in game 1, I think they'll probably go with him again in game 2.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And just a balanced attack, just to finish up a point on that, though, only 4 forwards without a point for this team as well. So they got contributions from absolutely everybody, including Antti Raanta in the crease. 35 saves. That's huge. Yeah. Boston outshot Carolina 36-25. So you got to think that typically Boston probably finds a way to win that game or at least score more than 1 goal when you've got the offensive guys that they do. Bergeron with 5 shots on goal in this game. Pasternak with 5 shots on goal. So their top line had 12 shots. If you add the 2 that Marchand had, Marchand a game worse, -3. So just like Tampa, I think these guys have a lot of pride. Marchand's a Stanley Cup champion. Same with Bergeron. And you look at what they're going to be thinking about on this off day. I think it's certainly going to bode them well in game 2. And it's just rare to me. You had the 1 close game in Edmonton last night, but 3 of the 4 games complete blowouts for game one. St. Louis does it on the road, which I think is even more impressive. And you talk about switching goalies. I mean, they made a ballsy move to sit Binnington, a guy they've got signed long-term. Ville Husso goes in, bang, gets a shutout. So goaltending is a finicky position, but the teams who are willing to be risky this time of year, it pays off often for sure. Speaking of games getting underway and goaltending, we'll preview the last two games. You got final thought on this Carolina-Boston series? You think this one's going to be a long one as well?
Yeah, I see this one going 7 games. I did. I had the Boston Bruins winning this one in 7. I might be wavering a little bit on my prediction there based on how the goaltending kind of shaped up. And we'll see if Freddie can get back into the net. I know he's not playing the first couple games, but if he can get back in there and he can stay healthy, Carolina's got a good chance to make a long, long run. So, we'll see what ends up happening with the goaltending position. But I wouldn't bet against the Carolina Hurricanes at this point. I would not bet against them. And if you do want to make some wagers, you can do that over at betonline.net. It's your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sport developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, the NHL playoffs, and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
You are listening to the Locked On NHL podcast, the Eastern Conference edition. You can find that Tuesdays wherever you download your podcasts, including on YouTube. If you are able to subscribe to our YouTube channel, it goes a long way. We'd appreciate that. That's Mikey DiStefano. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find our work on Locked On Leafs and Locked On Ottawa Senators. However, we've got day 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight, including the beginning of 2 electric series. I know which one I'm fired up for more. The prices at betonline.net right now. The New York Rangers are minus 116 to win their series against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins are minus 104. So no true underdog in that series. Same cannot be said for the Washington Capitals, who go into Florida plus 280 to win this series. The Panthers are minus 335, and for good reason. The Panthers are red hot. They obviously stumbled against Montreal in the last game of the season. I don't think they could care less. They barely played half their roster in that 10-2 loss. Unbelievable. But that team is geared up for a win. But let's start with the first game tonight, because we've got Pittsburgh and New York at 7 o'clock, and then finally the NHL figured out how to stagger the starts, dude? Like during the regular season, how often are you flipping on Game Center and it's like 6 games, they're all in intermission? So good on them. They figured it out. We got the half-hour stagger. What are your initial thoughts on this Pittsburgh-New York series?
Yeah, this one I got the Rangers winning the series. That's in my playoff bracket. I just think that the Rangers, honestly, this is a team that I expect to go on a run. I got them going all the way to the conference finals, to be honest with you. I know you're big on the Rangers. I got them a step further. Yeah, you got them going all the way, pal. I know you do. You got them them crowned at the end of the season.
No, but, I got Calgary winning the final, but I do have New York, and on the NHL.com bracket, I put total goals in the final 21, because, man, with Markstrom and the way the Flames play and Shesterkin, I think it's going to be low scoring. So I think hockey fans out there who aren't goalie friendly like I am, they're probably like, no, get these guys out of here. But, man, I'm excited to see Igor Shesterkin with some playoff hockey tonight.
Yeah, it'll look good, right? It'll look fun. And, that offense is starting to get going. Alexis Lafreniere is starting to get going, too, at the right time.
That'd be a nice coming-out party, eh?
Wouldn't it? I think that'd be perfect, right, for this guy to finally break out on the main stage. I mean, there's been so much fanfare about how, did they flub the pick? Timmy Stew's having an incredible start to his career. You know more than anybody, being a Locked On Sens and being out there in Ottawa. Well, not literally, but
I got to see that 2-goal performance last week, but that's neither here nor there.
You're in the building. And just the success that he's having so far this year, and even a bunch of other guys, like Lucas Raymond is having great success, and
Seth Jarvis.
Seth Jarvis, there you go, another kid. And he's just somebody it's taking him a little bit longer when he was expected to come in and perform right away. But it seems like he's turned the corner at the right time. A lot of the issues with him also is just he's not getting the playing time. Like, if
Not
you
at
look at
all.
his average ice time, he's playing like 14 minutes a game,
On the dot.
but his points per 60 is actually quite high, right?
Yep.
Like, his points per 60 is pretty good. So I think that, if he could have a coming out party right now, that would be perfect for them. But they've got other guys like Kreider, 50-goal scorer this season. You've got Artemi Panarin, who's one of the best wingers in the NHL. Mika Zibanejad, who you know very well,
Yep.
also extremely talented player. Ryan Strome, like they've got
How
so
about
many
Andrew? How about Andrew Kopp? 18 points in 16 games since being
and
acquired there. Huge pickup.
wasn't that the guy who we said was the going to be the biggest pickup when we did kind of our draftish
Check.
thing? Yeah, I would
Sure
say
did.
so.
And
I
then you
would
got
say
a back-to-back cup champ there for a little experience. Barclay Goodrow. He was getting some heat throughout the year, maybe not producing offensively as much as his contract would have dictated, only 33 points in 79 games, but you got him for this
Yep.
type of hockey.
Yep.
So,
Well,
dude,
just like Phil Deneau, and what did he do last night? Shut
Yep.
down McDavid and Draisaitl, right? So, yeah, I really do think that the Rangers are probably poised to win this, but you can't count out Sid and Gino at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, in the back of your head, it's like, am I underestimating those guys? Because they can take over a series. Like, they can just flat out do that. But Igor's pretty darn good himself. I think it's going to be a fun series, though. I got this one going, I think 6 games, and I think Rangers take it in 6.
yeah, I've got this one in. How many did I put it down for? Yeah. Yeah, 6 games for me as well. But like you look at it too, and you're like, Sidney Crosby still 84 points in 69 games this year. Like he just does it so quietly now. Like that's
I
well
know.
over a point per game. And you're just like, okay, you just kind of expect it. But for me, where I'm worried about the Penguins a little bit is their third and fourth line. I think that the additions that the Rangers made at the deadline allow them to be much deeper. You said it yourself, 14 minutes a night for Lafreniere. We're hoping to see that up, but it does speak to a lot more depth up front that they have on the back end. I probably lean Rangers, although they have a young decor as well with lots of guys getting their first real taste of playoff experience. Guys like Keandre Miller, who's taken on a huge role for them going forward. So I'm really curious to see how they do under the pressure of the playoffs. Like obviously hindsight 2020, but imagine they had a Ryan McDonough, for example, their old captain. Like I think they might just be missing that like King Daddy topper, to steal a quote from one of your favorites there in the O-Dog, but they might need that like crown jewel of the decor, the Victor Hedman, the slave, the guy who could really play.
Trouba's pretty good, man.
Yeah, you think he's in that echelon?
I don't. I'm not gonna put him in the obviously not like a Victor Hedman
Right.
type of echelon, but like
Because like
Jacob Trouba-
Letang's the best D in the series.
yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And then, Adam Fox.
True. Yeah, you're right. But again, a little less inexperienced this time of year. But that is a very good rebuttal for sure. He's nasty. He can run the power play, but again, like I think Letang probably overlooked here as well, where you're still at a guy who's almost at 70 points this season. Like that in itself is crazy. But yeah, Fox is obviously doing a little bit more. But man,
You got
I don't know.
Gensel, Rust. Like they got guys up and down the lineup who can put pucks in the back of the net. They went out and they acquired Ricard Raquel. So they've got a lot of guys who can score. Another big issue, though, similarly to the Carolina Hurricane situation, Tristan Jarry's out. Casey DeSmith is in. Now, he's played well down the stretch. I'll give him that. He's played really, really solid hockey. But again, unproven in the playoffs. This will be a big test going up against the Rangers, who've got some guys who can score, a team that can produce.
Yeah, it's going to be his first playoff game. And we saw how Tristan Jarry's first playoff games went in the bubble. It's not always easy to just jump in and play at the highest level against teams that are hungry. Like this Rangers team, did they? No, they were out in 3 games in the bubble. And then what happened with them last year? I feel like I'm missing. Yeah, they didn't even make the playoffs last year.
No.
So this is a team that I feel like the rebuild is definitely over. They've got their pieces from the rebuild that are either helping them now or already in the system. They need a little bit of a run here, I think, to really energize, because the MSG, there's really nothing like it. Like it might sound cliche, but they've obviously, to me, they've got the best goal song in the league, where all the fans are like, hey, hey. Oh, it's awesome when the Garden gets absolutely rolling. So I'm hoping we see that. But again, like you can't count out Sid and Malkin and Letang. They're all 34, 35 years old. So team of destiny type stuff. If you're the rest of that team saying we've only got them a few more runs, it would be a shame to allow that to slip away in the first round.
Letang, Rust, Malkin, all UFAs. UFAs this summer.
Yeah, wow.
So,
man, they got their work cut out for them, though.
Yeah, they certainly
No
do.
easy matchups in the Eastern Conference this year. There really aren't.
No.
And when there's 20 points different between the playoffs and non-playoffs, you can see why.
Right, and I guess that we can lead to the next matchup, Florida and Washington. If there was one division winner who I think could potentially serve as upset bait, is this the one?
Really?
I think this is the one for me that I think could turn into an upset over. It's not true, actually. Carolina.
No, but that wouldn't be enough. Oh, yeah, right, because you're still on Boston.
Yeah, Boston. Yeah, no, I'm going to change that answer. But I don't think the Capitals are an easy out. I'll say that. I don't think it's an easy out. Florida, very unproven team in the playoffs, much like the Maple Leafs. So we'll see what they got in store for us. But, I mean, what they did in the regular season's kind of – it's tough to ignore, right? I mean, they brought in guys who have playoff success like Claude Giroux, who's made a run to the Cup final, multiple playoff, long runs, whether it's, second, third round. He's got lots of playoff experience.
Yep.
So this is a team that, look, I think the Panthers are going to be, they're probably going to score a bunch of goals. To me, it's going to depend on, if Washington wants to stand a chance, it all depends on the health of Ovechkin and how that shoulder is. Because if he can't play at least like 70, 80% because of that shoulder injury, don't know if they have much of a chance. So I guess I'm actually going against what I had said a moment ago, saying that Florida is definitely going to win this one. But a lot of it stems on like how healthy is Ovi to me.
Yeah. No, that's very fair. And I'm looking at Sergei Bobrovsky, who only has 4 wins in 13 playoff games since Columbus upset Tampa in 2019. I don't know if I trust him that much, but he has bounced back this year. He's been unbelievable.
And if not him, Spencer Knight has had himself a stretch.
Yep.
Like you got Rookie of the Month in April with like a 940-something save percentage in that month.
He's been nasty, but again, this is the type of thing, like how quick do you go to him?
2 games.
The 2 games?
Right? Bob's has 2 games to hold the net down. He'll get 2 games to hold the net. If he's unable to do it, then you make the switch in game 3.
Yeah, fair enough. Minus 335, Mikey, to win the series are the Florida Panthers, and you can see why. Like they dominated this year. What was their goal differential was absolutely ridiculous. I think plus.
Didn't they break a record for most goals scored in an NHL season?
If they didn't, they had. Well, no, maybe for their own. Maybe 340 goals. Is that good?
I'll tell you if they broke a record.
A plus 94 differential. And the real stat for me here, and which is why I kind of snicker when you say the first 2 games. They're playing at home those first 2 games. 34-7 this season on home ice. Just unbeatable down in Sunrise, Florida, which, I mean, I don't know if you heard, Evgeny Kuznetsov's excited to start on the road because his allergies are acting up in DC. But it's not going to be a leisurely trip down there. Florida's going to just absolutely grind you down. They've got, what I like is they've got different players for different roles. We talk about that 2020 draft. How about Anton Lundell establishing himself as a dominant piece down the middle? He gives them so much depth. And I know it might sound trivial, but they were struggling in faceoffs earlier. Claude Giroux is one of the best faceoff guys over the last decade in the NHL. So bringing him in, it just creates so many matchup problems for Washington that, to me, this is a 5-game series.
Yeah, probably. I think I had him going. I think I had it a 6-game series, Florida in 6, but also Washington's goaltending is very suspect.
We didn't draft either of them in our top 4 each. So out of the top 8, we didn't touch either of those guys.
That's right. We took both of the Florida goalies over
And both the Boston, because we didn't touch Jack Campbell. He's really making us look smart there, eh?
Oh yeah, Soupy putting up a donut in his first game. Yeah, you're right. By the way, I was wrong. They did not break a record. The Oilers have.
Oh yeah, shocker! It's the '80s Oilers.
Yeah, they scored 446 back in the day.
But so. maybe a post 04-05 record.
Yeah, like a lockout record.
I'll pull that up. But okay, let's play devil's advocate. All the Capitals fans are just smashing their steering wheel, pissed off at us right now. What would you say is, if the Capitals win, how can they do it?
Ovi puts the team on their back. John Carlson goes Erik Karlsson 2017 mode.
Yeah.
And they have to get saves. Got to get saves, which is something they haven't gotten all year. So those three things are going to have to happen for the Capitals to go through, I think.
All right, and Mikey, we do have the stat here, pulling it up. Boom. Most goals since the lockout. Look at that. The Florida Panthers, 300 goals. They've beat the record clear by 18 over the 2018-19 Tampa Bay Lightning. Your Toronto Maple Leafs this year, tying the 05-06 Ottawa Senators with 312 goals.
That's what the stat was. Salary cap era. They scored the most goals in the salary cap era. That's what
they're averaging over. And that is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, it's not a good thing if you're the Washington Capitals who can't get saves right now.
No, it certainly doesn't seem like a recipe for success. Now, I guess the one thing, if you're the Capitals, is stay disciplined, stay out of the box, and try to draw a few, because we know it will be so dangerous on the power play. But I just don't think they have the depth to do it. And maybe I'm going to sound like an idiot in a week, and you can radio me. It's all good. But to me, this is in a season where out of the 4 matchups in the East, there's no real easy ones. This one's probably the closest that you get. And the betting lines do reflect that at BetOnline, having a -335 for the series.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be another great night. What was your overall impression here before we go, Mikey, of the first night in the playoffs? Are you worried that we could get more blowouts time after time, or are we going to get a few long overtimes? Those are some of my favorite moments of the NHL playoffs.
No, I think as the playoffs kind of ease into itself, we'll see some tighter games. I think last night it was kind of bizarre, but I think we'll see some tighter games, definitely. A couple OTs end up creeping in here. Some teams just weren't ready to go. I think at the end of the day, just weren't ready to go, but they'll be ready for game 2.
And we will be ready each and every Tuesday. You can also follow the Locked On NHL podcast for local experts on the biggest stories. We've got different hosts hosting every day. It's the beauty of the Locked On Podcast Network, and all of our local shows as well. Locked On Maple Leafs is going to be riding high today after a 5-0 victory. You can follow Locked On Lightning, Locked On Bruins, Locked On Hurricanes. You know the deal. And even the teams are out of the playoffs. So if your favorite team happens to be, I don't know, the Ottawa Senators, you can go listen to Locked On Senators for some Leafs hate and also some off-season content there as well. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, the only place where you get local experts on the biggest stories all across the National Hockey League. Mikey will be back. We'll do this again next Tuesday. Here's a question for you on the way out. Will any series be over by next Tuesday? So that would probably mean 4, maybe a 5-gamer.
No.
All right, there's the official prediction from Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators. Thank you for listening to the Eastern Conference edition that you can find every Tuesday of the Locked On NHL podcast. It's the Locked On Podcast Network. We've got your team every day.